Hello, everybody, and welcome to Drawn to Us, a podcast with a profile picture drawn by us, where we draw ideas from us to draw you in. And God flippin' darn it.
What?
I screwed up something.
Oh, did you?
I did.
Oh God, I didn't even notice this is the word.
Yes, but I know I played it over very cool and confidently, because that's how you lead people astray. Talking about leading people astray, that's what we're talking about today.
Are we?
Well, we're talking about power and leadership and all those other things first, but yes.
Ah, beautiful. Right.
It is. And so first of all, I'd like to give us all a rundown of the various most common words and phrases associated with power.
Mhm.
And then we can discuss those about, and also how people generally get power, how people generally get to become leaders.
Sounds good.
And so power is a very broad thing. Do any of you want to attempt to define it?
God, I don't know. Power seems like such a vague thing, right? It almost seems like beauty in a sense, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I mean, so is power, right?
Power is also in the eye of the beholder, yes.
Yeah. So what can you really define?
There's
as
actually
power?
a subset of power. It's authority, and we'll get into that.
Mhm.
Here's a quote from Game of Thrones, because we all love that show, especially the last 3 seasons. I mean,
That's my favorite.
Masterpieces.
I've never watched Game of Thrones, so to have this show ruined that everybody kept annoying me about for all these years is beautiful.
It is vindication. Okay, no. I think first or second season there was knowledge is power. And then the response was, of course, power is power. And I do agree. Power is power.
That is, yeah, water is water too.
No, water can be ice.
Oh, well.
But power is always power.
Well,
kind of
except when it isn't.
Oh.
What is Impy trying to say in the background here?
Yeah, Impy, you're a bit quiet. Speak up, boy.
The only vague, since power is a vague word, the only thing I can think of is ability.
Ability, that's a fun
good
one.
synonym.
That's a very good start.
It's thundering
the
outside.
Second word in the definition of power. The first word is the. So power is the ability.
The
Specifically,
ability
it's
to
the
fuck with
ability to
people.
achieve the outcome you desire.
Almost.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so that's what's power. When you kind of have some amount of control over the future to get it to be what you want it to be.
Yeah.
And so, of course, there's a lot of subsets of power, some of which I'd like to go deeper on, because power is, as we all said, vague. There's lots of different parts of power, and I want to go into the more tangible and the more common types today. So the first of those would be authority, and as we've talked about, it's in the eye of the beholder. What would you say is authority?
What, authority? By the way, somebody knocked on the door. I muted myself. Right. Authority is pretty much, I guess, one person's ability to dictate what another person does, I suppose. Right?
That is... Nah, that's not... That
Don't you think
sounds
so?
like slavery to me.
Yeah, well, what would you say authority is, MP?
Ability to
To enslave
wait, I just
someone.
had the word.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to influence what someone else does.
Yes.
Can't agree. I will say 2 things. Authority is, in my opinion, the weakest and also the strongest form of power. The strongest and weakest form it can take on.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weakest form because authority, the kind of power authority is granted. You have authority because other people believe you have authority. A policeman, a teacher, your parents, they all have authority over you.
Yeah.
And they only have and can exert that kind of authority because you believe it. So it's very weak. If you stop believing it, if you exclude yourself from the social contract, then most types of authority no longer apply to you. So
Yeah.
do you see that angle? Can you agree to that?
I mean, that's pretty much how I treated all my teachers. They try and throw their weight around, and I think they were all idiots, I wouldn't respect it at all. So I do see where you're coming from.
You will love the third segment because you'll get to talk about all the authority figures in your life.
Oh, nice. I will shit on everybody I've known so far. Thank you.
I'm just asking you to keep your keep some of your shots for the end, for the end spurt.
Sure.
So, Impy, do you, or heck, agree authority is only really power as long as people believe you have authority.
I do agree with that.
It's an agreement between parties.
Yeah, but you do have those people who just exert authority, right? Like, you've got those people who throw it kind of throw it around, right? But then you also have those people who just have gravitas, like they walk into a room and you're just like, oh crap, here they come,
That's charisma, I would say. Because you note them when they come in a room, they have a large impact.
Is that not also a form of authority, though?
No, charisma is much rather a way to behave. If you're charismatic, that means you probably know a lot about human psychology and how to get people to notice you.
But
AMP wanted to say something.
I was going to say, we haven't actually defined authority.
Yeah.
You just mentioned an attribute of it. It's undefined. No, it's not undefinable. It doesn't matter unless you believe it.
Yes, I would say. So we all agreed that what power is. Generally, you get to shape the future. Then let's define authority further. Authority, first of all, necessarily is an agreement between multiple parties that one of those people is allowed to wield authority. Furthermore, it is a social power. So it is in telling people what they do, a social amount of power. You could also have physical power if you're just strong, or if you have a threat of violence. That's more so physical power, I'd argue. And then you can turn it into social power. But authority is a purely social power, I would say.
So it's the social power to...
It's a social agreement between people that some of them may wield social power.
All right.
For usually clearly defined things. Because a policeman can order you to...
Can shoot you in the face.
No.
Well, he could.
Yes, that's not the kind of power authority brings, though. And the policeman could order you to maybe stop doing illegal stuff. They could issue you a speeding ticket. They could order you to stop certain activities. But they couldn't order you to go mow their lawn.
But they could if they pointed the gun at you.
Then that's no longer authority. That's
that's still authority.
Well, yeah, wouldn't
you say no?
It's rule by might. It's still authority.
It's I don't say it's authority, no, because authority is a social agreement. You don't agree to be forced.
Yeah. Well, I agree that you will shoot me if I don't do this. So
you don't agree to that.
You're doing what you say.
That is very disagreeable. Please show me one
act on the policeman's part, but it's...
Well, authority doesn't have to mean that you necessarily have to bend to it, right? And if the policeman threatened me, I could still be like, all right, then shoot me, and then he shoots me, and that's the end of it, right? Would he still have authority in that context? Because, he didn't control me. I still made my own choice, right? It's just the side effect is I die.
Yeah, you didn't let him influence you at all. Therefore, you did not accept his authority.
But he still had authority?
Not in how you... So it seems like authority isn't something that exists beforehand. It only exists in the after effect.
It exists it is the agreement. I'll stay with that.
Yeah,
only if all the parties involved or if all those parties affected agree, can you exert authority.
It does seem
in this case, however, not disagreeing is also an agreement, right? So if you stay out of it, if you don't really care what's coming out of it, you also agree to the social construct because you're not breaking it.
So I disagree by drowning and I agree by getting shot.
So yeah, and I would argue that authority isn't something you derive from a direct physical threat because it is. Yeah, I'll have to say authority is almost something that's accepted out of free will without being forced to. So there is always the alternative to reject authority and keep on being alive, keep on being not bodily harmed. You would experience hardships, of course, because if you reject the authority, you reject the entire social contract that involves it. And that means all of those things can no longer apply to you. Fun thing is, if you intentionally reject authority and stand outside of it, authority still kind of affects you because in most social systems, there is also the thought that on how to deal with those outside the social system. So usually it would be not interacting with you much. Maybe they'd even force you out if you didn't accept authority.
I think that's enough on defining authority. Let's move on to the next point.
Oh, wait, I was gonna...
No. Authority is very important because it's not only the weakest one, as we talked about, because both parties have to agree. It's also the strongest one.
Well, I mean, if Impy wants to say something, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
listen.
go ahead.
Under that logic, then the government doesn't have any authority
Why?
because we only follow the government under threat of imprisonment.
Oh, you follow your government?
No, you follow the government because you agree to the standard of living and to the social construct it involves.
Well, I mean, if you want to go down
No.
that path, Impy, do you really
You,
know?
wait, MP, are you telling me the only reason why you follow law is because you personally don't want to be imprisoned for it?
I mean,
'Cause I
that's why
don't think
follow
so.
law.
I mean, there are a lot of laws like that, like spreading chemicals for a landscaping company. There is, you have to get a certification to spread certain types of fertilizer, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I get because we don't want to be unregulatedly dumping
Mhm.
chemicals into the bay around us, but at the same time, we've done it. And
Is this your confession? Should we even
Give
upload
us
this?
more incriminating stuff.
and
I remember I shot this guy, man.
But
Don't worry, I shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy.
Of course, thank God.
something you really don't want to go into a court of law and say, yeah, I did that,
Mhm.
and because there will be consequences for it. So I mean, that's a law where I don't accept the authority of the government figures, and if they find out, they will have to imprison me or do something or fine me.
You still
Yeah, if they
accept their
find out.
authority because you don't go around telling it. And you still accept that this is a law, right? You don't fundamentally say, well, people say this is a law, but to me it's not a law.
If they find out, perhaps in the form of
You personally can agree as far as it's a law and it's illegal, it will have legal ramifications if I
Yeah.
break the law. Yeah. And all of that is based on the authority the government holds, is what I'd argue. Because at the end of the day, a government is just a really big amount of people all coming together and deciding, okay, this is what we all agree on as a rule set for living.
So it's the authority of a group versus authority of a single person, like a parent. Because
Yeah.
a parent will say, "Oh, pick up your toys,"
Mhm.
but then even if you don't do it, then there's probably still going to be a punishment if they're a good parent. They'll be like, "Okay, then
I
no
suppose,
dessert tonight."
but then that's not about them having authority or not, right? That's you discarding authority at that point,
Yeah,
right?
that's what you do. You stand outside the system of authority. Now the system of authority has its way to deal with you. Usually it is
Discard it.
punishment because the system of authority, social system, wants all the people inside of it. You want all of those people who you're interacting with to follow the same set of rules.
Yeah, so
So
there's a slight disconnect here in my head
Mhm.
because we're saying authority has nothing to do with the consequences of not obeying the authority. Like,
No.
once it has to be
I'm
enforced,
saying it isn't based on those consequences. Authority is just people, two or more people agreeing this is what kind of rules or what kind of behaviors we will accept. And then authority afterwards states, okay, if you don't do it, that's what's going to happen. But that's already based on the authority, on whether you accept it or reject it. The offer has been made.
So, yeah, I'm just still trying to understand why someone with a gun does not have authority over you versus a parent having authority over you. Because
Well, maybe we should stop calling it authority and introduce like another player. I mean, if somebody threatens you with a gun, perhaps they don't have authority over you. Perhaps they have a different kind of power.
Influence.
I guess. I mean, I wouldn't call it authority, right? If somebody threatens me with a gun, I wouldn't call it authority.
Yeah, I also wouldn't call it authority because in this case, the consequences are the direct cause of you obeying things. In authority, it's an agreement between two people, which does not have any base reason. Nobody is forced to agree to this. You do it out of your own free will. And then with the gun, you do it out of your survival instinct.
But isn't that what the social contract is? It's all survival instinct.
I don't
The
think
social
your
construct
parents
is-
will murder you if you don't pick up
A
your
social
sword.
construct
No,
isn't
no,
directly enforced by survival instinct, because you could just go to another land where the government has different rules which you apply to more. Right?
I want to murder people. I want to go to a different government.
Go to a very authoritarian state,
China
or become a cult leader. It works for some of those, I hear.
works for me.
Mhm. I
So, yeah.
just don't see the
The
just
difference
seems to me
between
like-
being forced to do something and agreeing to do something.
not forced exactly, but
You are forced if you're threatened at gunpoint.
the consequences are very much directly linked to the understanding of the two parties.
Yes, I do see what Impy means, because that's kind of, it's like you listen to your parents or your teachers or whoever because you're afraid of punishment. And
Yeah.
I think at that point we shouldn't just not call it authority anymore. So we should just get
I
that
would
idea
say we should. Authority is when you agree to
You're
it.
making this so complicated.
Authority is when you personally agree to those things.
Mhm.
Influence is when you don't necessarily agree to those things because you want, but because you have to.
Right.
So we
So,
can
And you
look
don't
at
have to agree to authority.
so yeah, we can look at the exact same scenario. Someone says, "Go cut my lawn."
And you say, "Oh, cool! I'm a landscaper. I'll do that."
Well, no, because so wait, now there's two different.
just
authority.
just take a different example.
If I had a choice, I wouldn't go cut that lawn. But
Mhm.
one, he's paying me.
Hmm.
So
So
that
Is
is
that
you and
easy?
him agreeing. I'll give you money, and in turn, you'll go cut my lawn. That is already a way of authority.
is it authority or influence? Because it's in the same exact scenario,
They
someone
don't
says, "Go-"
exclude each other. You can have authority and exert influence, but you don't need to have authority to have influence.
Are we saying
So-
authority and
so-
influence so much?
In the same exact scenario, guy tells me to go cut his lawn, but he's not going to give me money. He's just pointing a gun at me.
Mhm.
He has authority and influence.
No, he has control.
He has control.
Well, here's the thing. If I say he has control, I'll presume you will go cut his lawn because you don't want to get shot, and you believe him he's going to shoot you.
Which is it's much
It's a valid
more
concern, I'd say.
Yeah, it's much more present than being paid.
Is it?
But in
Yeah.
the end, I mean, it's still the consequences of cutting or not cutting the lawn will make you want to do something.
Yes, people are motivated by the results of what happens. It's not necessarily, but I don't see how this goes back to authority.
I think what MP is trying to say is that it's still authority because, or wait, the point he's trying to make is that it's about the consequences at the end, right? And that we do stuff because of the consequences and not because of the social
in the end, everything is about the consequences.
In the end, it didn't even matter.
It doesn't even matter. So yes, I can agree to that, but that doesn't tie back into authority.
I guess what I'm thinking is I don't see any difference between how authority is gained.
Authority is gained through
But you're saying
agreement of free will.
we should come back to this some other time.
Why?
Maybe someone in the comments will understand.
I think we should just move on and introduce like other stuff, and then maybe this will become clear because we're dealing with a very limited bag of just authority and not authority right now. So maybe with more words, it will be easier to.
Well, the other terms I would like to talk about is control, which is when your thoughts or your desires are immediately linked to the result. Control is also a form of power. Mm-hmm. Control is a kind of idealized version of power. because obviously you have the ability to have the future be what you want it to be. That's literally what control is. Control is power in its ultimate form. Can we agree to this?
I suppose. I mean,
Yeah,
you have
good
ultimate
enough.
power over somebody, so you can control them. So
Or
yeah.
not necessarily somebody.
Can you control a human being?
No. Oh, well, yes. Theoretically, you can. Practically, it's very hard. And also not worth it.
To some people.
No, it's never worth it to fully control someone.
Oh boy,
You can't just
hear that?
you can't just figure out how do I get them to do what I want, and that's not necessarily control. That's what kind of power do I have over them?
Okay, so we're talking specifically control, like
Control.
I press the gas pedal on my truck and it goes forward.
Yes, that is control.
So it's more like inanimate objects.
Mostly, yes. You can only control animated things in very small doses, or very. You could control some animals. It's going to be harder the more complicated and sophisticated the creature is. The more complicated stuff you want to get it to do is.
And I suppose there's only a certain level of control you can exert over things like plants, because
grow now.
yeah, you can't really make them grow faster, or you can't stop
can.
them from growing except
You can.
with chemicals and stuff.
Yeah,
Or you can kill
you
them.
can.
This reminds me of the
You can control how fast they grow, how they grow with wood and sticks and
this
what do
literally
you call
is
these
the Kung
things?
Fu Panda scene, isn't it? You guys
What?
ever seen Kung Fu Panda?
Yes.
Yes.
You know that first movie where the little raccoon is talking to the turtle about the peach tree? And this is the exact same argument. He's like, I can choose where to plant the peach tree, and I can do all this stuff. And then the turtle's like, yeah, but no matter what you do, no matter how much control you have over the peach tree, it will always be a peach tree, even if you want apples or oranges.
No, you can genetically modify it to be an apple tree.
Shut up, Summer.
Yeah, no, this argument does not hold up. You can, in a theoretical space, have absolute control over a plant. As I said, it's just not worth it.
Summer, you would go to the length of genetically modifying a peach to turn into an orange to prove your point.
My other point was that it's not worth it to control something complex.
But
you could just go and get an orange tree instead.
I couldn't genetically modify the orange, so I could not control that aspect of the orange. But I can control.
Oh, you could. You could learn about it and do it.
No, God, it's
but
so
me right now, me right now cannot control plant. Me can only want orange, but get
together strong.
But I could cut the branch off and make the plant smaller.
Yes.
So I have control over certain things, but not other things.
Yeah, and you have for things below the level of animals, maybe even for some small animals, you can get complete control. You can get control up to the level where you need. So it might not be infinitely, so you might not be able to control every single aspect. Yeah, but you can control as much as you need. Because honestly, no one needs to control how a plant grows all that much.
Well,
God, all right.
You don't need to control whether it's pink.
If we're talking about need, like on the level of life and death here, I'm certain many people would need to control gravity, but they can't.
No.
This is the most ridiculous discussion we've ever had. Jesus.
You can't control gravity. Oh no! Yes. Hold up.
God, Summer.
We can't control.
We might be able to control gravity. Right now, we don't know enough.
Yes, so we cannot control gravity. Caveat at the moment.
Yes.
We can only utilize some aspects of it.
Yeah, and so gravity is obviously a very complicated thing, more complicated than plants to control.
complicated. It's just up goes up, down goes down.
Goes up, everything goes down.
Yeah, Newton, what an idiot. God, I could have come up with that.
Okay. Newton was, by the way, a douchebag.
Oh, what? I heard he was a virgin until he died. That was fun.
To each
What's
their
that?
own?
I mean,
Okay, we have talked about control.
Yeah. Control,
The last thing,
direct ability
Yeah.
to influence something exactly.
Yeah.
As
and then influence is the next one I'd like to talk about. Because we've talked about, what was it? Give me a second. Control.
power, influence.
Yeah.
And,
authority.
Control is also the power to influence and to form your own decisions. Because you can have control of your thoughts. So
yes,
it's very
but
interesting.
you can influence things without meaning to or having power.
Yeah,
I mean, you do it all the
influence is much harder because influence is just whatever you do or don't do changes how other things act. Influence is really just you interact with the world.
I mean, even beyond that, right? Just being present in the world is already changing things.
Yeah, that's already interaction.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
I was thinking about that as a kid. If there was truly a way for me to never influence anything, and I thought,
no,
there isn't. Yeah, even if I, was a sentient baby and I dug myself into the ground until I died, I still would have influenced the ground, and by being born itself. So there's no way around it.
Yeah, we all always influence things. The last point I wanted to mention here is that what leadership is. Because most of the points that make for a good leader are the things that don't give you a great deal of control or authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say leadership is the ability to inspire people, to motivate people.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership is the ability to manage people, so to find suitable people for suitable jobs, suitable jobs for suitable people, the entire spiel. And finally, it's also the ability to plan in a big picture, or to see a big picture. Long-term thinking.
It's just
And none of those things are impeccable or necessary for any of the other parts. So leadership is much more a skill we've acquired as humans. It's closer to authority than it is to any other kind of power.
I mean, isn't it just a way to gain authority?
No. And we'll get into that very soon, after we talk about power and corruption, actually.
All right, this would be fun. I mean, do you have a question about leadership that we can kind of link to all these things?
Me?
Yeah, like, is there anything you had in mind when you started talking about leadership?
Yes, I think leadership is one of the core principles of using power, because power, that's something I'd want to end this one on. Power is not the goal. Power never is the goal. Power is always a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
So think of power like a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what I want to end on for now.
Is that our first part?
Yeah. Okay, wait. How many minutes has it been?
I'm not sure when we...
I like how we have some topics where it's like, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then others we're just like, yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the nice flow of different ideas. Because there's some things which we can all agree on, since we're only 3 people and not everyone, fortunately.
Yeah, well, it's fun. I think we have a nice focus group here. We've got me and you guys.
Yes.
Somebody competent.
We've got you, we've got me, and we've got the American.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we've got the American, we've got me, and we've got you.
Oh, okay. So how you want to play?
That's a good one.
No, I want to play about power and corruption.
All right, let's move on, I guess.
Yeah.